Hello everyone and welcome back to another brand new video. I bet you guys are surprised to see this video here. About a year ago, when I first started my channel, I released a series of videos rewriting Ash's journeys from Sinnoh to Journeys, which I changed into a Galar series. However, I left out the Kanto through Hoenn series because at the time, I wasn't too sure how I would have rewritten those. Well, I finally sat down and thought about how my rewrites for the early series would have gone, and now I'll be presenting that to you guys. I said all the way back then that I wouldn't have changed too much with these series, but I actually ended up changing more than I thought. But I think it's all for the better. So without further ado, let's start off this 3-part finale by discussing how I would rewrite Ash's Kanto and Orange Island's journeys. Now, unlike the previous summary series, I'm going to format this one similarly to part 1 of my Unova rewrite, since the Kanto series was so short, and it'll be easier to tell this story chronologically. But just a note, I won't be going over every single solitary event in this series, so just assume that minor events like trainer battles and other events will go as originally presented unless I state otherwise. My main goal here will be improving upon Ash's team and developing all of his Pokemon instead of just mainly Pikachu and the starter trio. So with that in mind, let's start with Ash's Kanto journey. Ash's adventure begins the same and continues all the way up until Brock's gym. I really want to add a bit more depth to Ash's gym battles, so I've opted to make some big changes to the early episodes. After Ash loses to Brock, he still does a bit of training with Flint, but he decides to leave Pewter City to do more preparation on his own. Here, he winds up running into the Squirtle Squad and catches Squirtle, this time after defeating it in a battle with Pidgeotto. Since this episode was in an unspecified location, we can reorganize it as we wish, so I'm putting this episode here. Now, when Ash returns to Pewter City to rematch Brock, he'll have Squirtle to make things easier. Squirtle will be able to easily take down Geodude, but Onix will actually be strong enough to overpower him as he'll be tired from his earlier battle. He'd still land a few water guns to deal big damage though, so Onix will be weakened by the time Pikachu enters. Pikachu will then come out and do his typical shenanigans with the sprinklers, though in this instance, Brock's siblings wouldn't be there to interrupt the battle, and Onix would be properly defeated after taking so much prior damage from Squirtle. Brock would award Ash with his badge, and things would continue as normal with him and Misty traveling with Ash. Our next change will occur as Ash meets Bulbasaur before the group arrives to Cerulean City. In this universe, Ash has Butterfree battle and defeat Bulbasaur, adding him to his team, giving him a grass type before battling Misty. And speaking of, the gym battle would be a different format. Ash and Misty will have 3 one-on-one battles, with the aim of getting 2 wins. Butterfree versus Staryu would turn out the same, with Staryu winning, but in this case, Pidgeotto would defeat Starmie. Pikachu would refuse to battle Misty as usual, and Team Rocket would still try to interrupt the battle, but Lily, Violet, Daisy, and Brock will blast them off. Ash and Misty then have their final match in peace, and Ash uses Bulbasaur, while Misty goes with Goldeen, with Bulbasaur getting the win after a hard-fought battle. Ash gets his badge fairly, and the gang continues on. Charmander will be caught as normal, as will Krabby, who is still sent to Oak's lab. Now we move on to Ash's battle against Surge. And I'm going to be keeping it the same, since this is one of the few Kanto gym battles that I actually think was well done. So the journey will continue as normal. However, a big change will occur afterward, as we're going to be skipping Bye Bye Butterfree, and Ash won't be releasing him. I think having Butterfree only on Ash's team for like 20 episodes was just way too short, so he's staying on the team for now. Next, we're going to have the 3-part Saffron City arc, and there are going to be some changes here too. First things first, Ash will still lose to Sabrina in his initial battle, but it's going to be a 3-on-3. Ash tries to use Pikachu against Abra, but he's overpowered and loses, and the same is true of Squirtle. Ash tries Charmander last, and while he does manage to defeat Abra, he falls to Slowpoke's water-type attacks. Ash, as usual, goes to train for a rematch, but instead of befriending a Haunter to make Sabrina laugh, he instead decides to swap around some of his Pokemon, sending Charmander to Oak's lab and bringing Krabby. This, however, winds up upsetting Charmander, who feels like he disappointed Ash and fears he may want to abandon him like Damien did. Ash is unaware of this though, and prepares for his rematch normally. In the rematch, Krabby will defeat Sabrina's Abra, but lose to her Slowpoke. Bulbasaur will then come in to face Slowpoke, but the two would knock each other out in a collision of Razor Leaf and Confusion. In the final matchup of Butterfree vs Kadabra, Butterfree would get the win after learning a Psychic-type move of his own, Psybeam. Look, I know that sounds odd, but Gen 1 barely had any damaging Bug-type moves, and Butterfree sure didn't get any. Heck, it didn't get any Flying-type moves either. So yeah, this just sounds like a Gen 1 type of battle, so let's move on. Ash catches Primeape as normal, and he adds him to his active team this time. He also sends Bulbasaur to Professor Oak and brings back Charmander. So next is Ash's battle against Erica. The battle will be a 3-on-3. Erica uses Tangela first, and Primeape is able to easily defeat this Pokemon, though he doesn't listen to Ash too much in the battle. Once Erica realizes this, she and Weepinbell are able to defeat Primeape. Pidgeotto is used next to defeat Weepinbell. Last on Erica's end is Gloom, who defeats the weakened Pidgeotto. Last for Ash is Charmander. Charmander is desperate to prove himself to Ash after having been temporarily sent to Oak's lab. He doesn't want Ash to think he's too weak, so he goes all out to defeat Gloom, sometimes even ignoring Ash's commands. In fact, he battles so fiercely that he winds up starting a fire in the gym. That's right, the gym battle is still interrupted by a fire, but not caused by Team Rocket, but instead by Charmander in a desperate attempt to prove his power to Ash. Misty and Brock use their water and rock types to put out the fire, and the battle is of course called off due to damage to the gym. Ash does still save Gloom, and Erica gives him the Rainbow Badge not only for saving Gloom, but because it was obvious that Charmander would have been able to defeat her. However, Ash is not really happy about this. He doesn't understand why Charmander was battling so aggressively, and with Primeape also disobeying him in the battle, he's starting to doubt his skills as a trainer. This is what leads Ash to participate in the P1 Grand Prix with Primeape. Here, Primeape learns to listen to Ash, but Ash doesn't give the Pokemon away this time around, and keeps the now obedient Primeape on his team. Ash catches Muck and decides to add him to his team, sending Squirtle to Professor Oak. He also brings back Butterfree and sends over Pidgeotto. This is right in time for Ash's gym battle against Koga. Koga starts the battle with a Grimer, but Ash uses his Muck. Muck is much more powerful than his pre-evolved form, so he gets the win in this first match. This is when Koga sends out Venomoth, who defeats Muck with Psychic. Ash decides to use Primeape next, and despite struggling a bit, he's able to beat Venomoth now that he and Ash are battling in sync. Golbat is out last for Koga, and he finishes off Primeape after a long battle. Initially, Ash sends out Charmander, but Team Rocket attacks the gym before the final match can begin. Ash winds up using Charmander to defeat Team Rocket and send them blasting off, though he winds up taking some big hits from their Pokemon. This has Ash wary about using him in the final gym battle now. Charmander insists to Ash that he's fine, but Ash doesn't want to risk it, and instead replaces him officially with Butterfree, which Koga approves of considering the circumstances. Butterfree struggles a lot, but manages to get the win with a combination of Sleep Powder and Psybeam. Ash is happy to get his badge, but Charmander, who watched the whole thing on the sidelines, is devastated to have been overlooked. Moving on, Ash catches his numerous Tauros, and he adds one to his team, swapping out Primeape. I'm gonna say that this Tauros is the only one that actually likes battling, and the other ones are just lazy, so it'll be the only one Ash uses. Along the way to Cinnabar Island, Charmander still evolves, though in this situation, it's now due to the fear that Ash is displeased with him. Even though he took the time to rescue him, he's now terrified that Ash may release him, just as Damien did. Charmeleon will remain a Charmeleon for a bit longer now though, and it'll be Misty and Brock's Pokemon who handle Aerodactyl instead of Charmeleon, and I'll even have Brock catch it since it's a rock type. Now we get to Cinnabar Island for Ash's battle against Blame, which will be a 4v4. Ash brings Squirtle back to the team and sends Butterfree to Oak. The battle begins with Pikachu facing a Growlithe, which he is able to beat easily. I know I haven't mentioned Pikachu too much, but he'd still be getting his canon trainer battles and fights against Team Rocket, so he's about on par with his canon counterpart. Next, Blaine uses Ninetales, who Pikachu was able to deal a bit of damage to before going down to Fire Spin. The battle continues with Squirtle coming in to face Ninetales. Ninetales is powerful, but Squirtle manages to defeat the fire type thanks to Pikachu weakening her. He also manages to deal a lot of damage to the incoming Rhydon before falling to Horndrill. Ash sends out Krabby next, and he struggles due to his small size, but eventually evolves in the midst of battle, then gets the win with a powerful Crabhammer. Kingler then faces off against Magmar, but loses despite the type advantage, though he does get a few hits in. Ash thinks about his last choice, but before he can even make a decision, Charmeleon bursts from his Pokeball, demanding to fight. Ash is unsure, but agrees after thinking about it that a battle of fire types would be cool. Charmeleon struggles a lot in the battle and is almost taken down, but in his desperation to prove himself, he begins battling much more aggressively, just like in Erica's gym, once again to the point of ignoring Ash's commands. This has Ash regretting his choice until Charmeleon uses a mighty submission attack, followed by Seismic Toss, to defeat Magmar. Ash is happy over Charmeleon's success, and this victory causes him to evolve. Ash is even happier, until Charizard begins acting distant, confusing Ash. Things continue on until it's time for Ash's final gym battle against Giovanni, or in this case, Team Rocket. In our story, I'm going to say that this would be a full battle for Ash though, just to show off more of his Pokemon in the final challenge. Bulbasaur is brought back to the team, while Charizard is sent to Oaks. The battle begins with a Rhyhorn facing Squirtle. Squirtle gets the win easily, though he is defeated by the incoming Nidoking. Ash sends out Muck to take it on, and the two wind up knocking each other out. Next is a Marowak, and Ash uses Kingler to take it down, but the following Nidoqueen defeats him. Ash sends out Tauros, who shows off his strength by taking down Nidoqueen after a long battle. Sandslash is the next Pokemon, but Tauros beats it as well. But the last Pokemon is a powerful Golem, which finishes off Tauros. Ash sends out Pikachu, though he's pretty powerless against Golem. His electricity does manage to destroy the device Team Rocket had been using to injure him in battle, though. This leaves Bulbasaur as the last Pokemon, and he defeats Golem, giving Ash the win in his final gym battle. And now it's time to head to the Indigo League. Of course, with Ash now having a much more developed roster of Pokemon, things will fare a bit better for him. Ash doesn't have any specific 6 Pokemon on his team for now, and he'll simply recall who he needs for each battle. First is Ash's battle against Mandy on the water battlefield. No need for a Krabby Kingler sweep, since Kingler has had a stronger presence in this rewrite, so the battle will be a team endeavor. Mandy starts with his Executor, so Ash sends in Pidgeotto. Pidgeotto is able to take down the Pokemon thanks to his type advantage, though he takes a lot of damage from Executor's psychic type attacks. Seizure is the next choice to battle, and he uses the water battlefield to take the advantage and defeat Pidgeotto. Ash decides to use Pikachu next, and he electrifies the water to take out Seadra. Last is Golbat, and even though Pikachu has the type advantage, Golbat's Double Team, Razor Wind, and Mega Drain are too much for Pikachu to deal with, and he falls. Ash's last choice is Butterfree, and just like at Koga's gym, Butterfree uses his Psychic type attack to get a win here. Only in this case, his Psybeam turns into a powerful Psychic to get him his victory. Ash gets his first league win with his first 3 Pokemon. Ash's second battle will be fully on-screen this time, unlike in the series. Again, we want to show off as much of his team as possible. So this episode will need to be just Ash's battle with the food and Team Rocket stuff removed, which I'm more than okay with. Besides, the original series wasn't really known for long battles, so these would likely be pretty quick. So Ash will battle a trainer on the rock battlefield, who starts with a Hitmonlee. Ash will counter it with his own fighting type, Primeape. Both Pokemon are powerful, and the match ends with Primeape beating Hitmonlee, but falling immediately after an exhaustion, so it's a double knockout. Kangaskhan is next, so Ash uses Tauros, and he manages to defeat the Kangaroo after a difficult brawl. Nidorino is last, and he uses his Poison-type moves to wear down Tauros and win. Squirtle is out last, and just like in canon, he defeats Nidorino, giving Ash the win. The third battle will occur in the second half of the episode, and we'll see the full battle rather than just the last 2. On the ice battlefield, Ash faces Pete Pebbleman. Pete will begin the battle with his Electrode, and Ash will use Muck. Electrode will actually have the advantage for most of the battle, but once he tries to go for self-destruct, Muck will crush him with a Body Slam, blocking most of the damage as Electrode falls. Pete will use his Cloyster next, and Cloyster will defeat Muck by freezing it with Ice Beam, then finishing it off with a Hyper Beam. Next, Ash uses Bulbasaur, and he manages to hold his own against Cloyster. But a Hyper Beam Solar Beam collision leads to a double knockout. Last is Arcanine versus Kingler, and in this battle, Kingler is able to beat Arcanine after Fire Blast melts the ice battlefield, allowing Kingler to ruin Arcanine's mobility, so he can spam relentless attacks which Arcanine can't easily avoid, moving Ash forward in the competition. Things will change in the next episode, as Gary won't be losing here, and he'll actually move forward to the next round. This will come as an important plot point later, so bear with me. Ash meanwhile battles Jeanette Fisher, but things will be different here. Ash will use Charizard. However, Charizard doesn't listen to any of Ash's commands. He battles completely on his own, and while he does manage to pretty easily take down Jeanette Fisher's Beedrill, Scyther, and Bellsprout, Ash and his friends are concerned with Charizard's behavior. Even though Ash is happy to have won, he's upset by how Charizard didn't listen to him at all during the battle. With this battle now moving much quicker than in canon, we can have Ash meet and befriend Richie as normal, and everything leading up to their battle will play out as normal. However, the battle itself will be quite different, as it'll be a full battle. By now, I think Ash should have moved on to full battles for the League, so that's what will happen here. So we can dedicate a full episode to this full battle. Richie will start with his Spearow, and Ash's Pikachu will easily take it down. Richie will then use Zippo, and he'll be able to deal a lot of damage to Pikachu, so Ash will recall him for Squirtle. Squirtle will finish off Zippo, so Sparky will be next for Richie, and he'll defeat Squirtle before Richie recalls him. Richie will bring in Happy, and Ash will use Butterfree. The twin butterflies will battle intensely, but the battle will be a double knockout. Ash will use his Bulbasaur next, while Richie sends out Tentacool. Bulbasaur manages to win. However, he falls to Richie's strong Dragonair, who comes out next. Ash sends in Pidgeotto, but he also goes down to the Dragon type. Ash decides to go with Primeape, and using his immense physical power, he defeats the dragon, leaving Richie with just Sparky. Primeape battles hard, but as he's exhausted from his battle with Dragonair, a strong Thunderbolt can finish him off. Ash then sends out his final Pokemon, Pikachu, and thanks to having enough time to rest, and Primeape dealing so much damage to Sparky, Pikachu is able to overpower his opponent to get the win, winning Ash the battle. So, now things will need to change. With Ash winning this battle, he'll be moving forward in the Indigo League, and his next opponent will be none other than Gary Oak. Another huge issue I had with the original series was Ash never having an actual battle with Gary, who was supposed to be Ash's rival. Honestly speaking, I always thought Gary was one of Ash's least interesting rivals for that reason. We barely saw him, and when we did, he sure wasn't battling Ash. So I thought, why not end off the original Kanto series by having Ash battle Gary in the top 16? Note, I know that realistically, this should be the top 8, since Ash made it one round further than in canon, but I think this placement makes more sense for his first league. If we need to say there was an extra preliminary round in order for this to make sense, so be it. We'll say it was a random one-on-one and Ash won with Pikachu. Of course, Ash's battle against Gary will be another full battle, so let's get to it. Gary will start with his strong Nidoqueen, where Ash goes with Muck. However, Nidoqueen will be able to defeat Muck, putting the battle in Gary's favor right off the bat. Ash brings in Kingler next, and he manages to defeat Nidoqueen, though it's a tough battle. Gary uses his Blastoise next, and the Pokemon is able to finish off Kingler. Ash then uses Tauros, and the Pokemon spar for a bit, but Gary switches to his Nidoking. Tauros and Nidoking battle intensely and end up knocking each other out. Ash uses Primeape next, and Gary sends out his Dodrio. Primeape is powerful and deals a lot of hard hits, but Dodrio wins thanks to his powerful Drill Peck attack. Ash is down to 2 Pokemon, while Gary still has 3, so he decides to use Pikachu. Pikachu is able to get the victory over the bird with a Thunderbolt, and Gary sends out Blastoise. Ash thinks he'll be fine, since Pikachu has the type advantage, but Blastoise is able to overpower Pikachu with Earthquake and Hydro Pump, giving Gary the win. Ash feels backed into a corner, and even though it's not the best choice, he sends Charizard out to battle. Charizard, however, still isn't listening to Ash. He battles Blastoise completely recklessly, ignoring any order Ash gives. Ash tries to get him to listen, but it's useless. This allows Blastoise to easily overpower Charizard, finishing him off with a Hydro Pump. Gary is thus deemed the winner of the battle. Ash is incredibly saddened to lose like this against Gary no less. This would have him vow to work more with his Pokemon and defeat Gary in the future, and he decides to do this by going on to face the Orange Islands League. So this would end Kanto's original journey, meaning it's time to move right into the Orange Islands. Now, I'm not gonna lie guys, the Orange Islands didn't have much in terms of plot. Outside of Ash's gym challenges and a few notable episodes, the Orange Islands were basically a bunch of filler, likely the whole time until the Johto gangs were out. So this portion of the video is going to be very quick. But we need to start with a couple of major events. Episode 1 of the Orange Islands arc will now be Bye Bye Butterfree. Yep, it's time for Butterfree to finally move on to the next chapter of his life. The events of the episode will be pretty much the same as canon, only now of course Butterfree is much stronger, and I think the goodbye would be more impactful, since Butterfree was on Ash's team for so long. Like I said, I didn't mind Butterfree being released, I just think 20 episodes after his capture was way too soon. And to continue on with that, Ash will release Pidgeotto in the following episode, which will basically go as canon, with Pidgeotto evolving into Pidgeot and leaving to care for the Pidgeyflock. Now we can move on to the actual Orange Islands journey. So Ash will catch Lapras, and she'll be used to win him his first gym race as in canon. Things will progress the same until Ash's second gym challenge. Round 1 will go the same as canon, with Lapras freezing a geyser for Ash. In round 2, Ash opts to use Primeape, Kingler, and Tauros to help him fashion a sled much quicker and easier than in canon. The final round will then go the same as in canon, with Pikachu, Squirtle, and Bulbasaur racing down the mountain with Ash. Snorlax will be caught in the episode following the second gym challenge. Things will go as canon until Ash's third gym challenge. The first half will change a bit, as Ash will use Lapras, Kingler, and Bulbasaur for the target hitting challenge. Ash and Bulbasaur will just ride Lapras instead of being in the boat, and Kingler can swim next to him. When Rudy proposes the battle to Ash, he'll decide to battle with poison, normal, and water types, instead of electric, grass, and water. So Ash will be using Muck, Snorlax, and Lapras in the battle. Muck will tie against Rudy's Tentacruel, while Snorlax will defeat his Clefable. Last, Lapras will face his Starmie, and though she struggles against the Pokemon's Thunderbolt, she winds up winning after she learns to harness the electric-type energy and uses the move Thunder. In Charizard Chills, Ash will finally address the issue with Charizard. After Charizard loses to Tad's Poliwrath, he actually begins to cry in distress. Ash is confused why Charizard hasn't listened to him in battle since he evolved. And it's here that he learns that Charizard wasn't disobedient because he disliked him or didn't respect him or anything. Instead, he feared that Ash thought he wasn't strong enough, considering how many times he'd be sent to Oaks or left out of battles. This had him afraid that Ash might release him like Damien did. He just wanted to prove himself to Ash, and it led to him battling recklessly in his blind desire to show off his strength. After Ash hears this, he tells Charizard that he would never think lowly of him, and that he apologizes for not realizing how his actions affected him. He asks if they can start over and battle like teammates once more, and Charizard agrees. The rest of the episode then continues as normal, with Charizard listening to Ash from now on. And by the way, since Squirtle did learn Hydro Pump in that third gym battle, considering he wasn't used, he'll learn it in the next episode since it focuses on him. Ash's final gym battle against Luana will be the same as canon, with Ash using Pikachu and his now obedient Charizard. Moving forward, let's get to Ash's battle against Drake. This battle will be nearly the same, only we're going to swap out Tauros for Snorlax just to give the newer teammate another battle. I know the canon plot literally had the opposite of this happen, but since in this universe, Tauros has been used a lot more and has many wins under his belt, I'd rather this one go to Snorlax. And also, Team Rocket would try to interrupt the battle, but Misty and Tracy would stop them before they even get the chance in this version. So the beginning of the battle will still be the same, with Pikachu beating Ditto and Squirtle beating Onix. Things will change at Gengar versus Lapras. I'm gonna say that Lapras would be able to actually take down Gengar since she's a bit stronger in this universe. Ash would recall Lapras after that battle, and Snorlax would face Venusaur, who he'd defeat with an Ice Punch, meaning Ash would take down 4 of Drake's Pokemon without losing any. Electabuzz would change that as in canon, and this time he takes out both Snorlax and then Bulbasaur. Charizard would come out and defeat Electabuzz before falling to Dragonite. Squirtle will then return to the battle to deal a bit of damage, but he'll also go down. Lapras will come in next and do even more damage to Dragonite with her Ice-type attacks, wearing him down immensely, but she'll still be defeated. But with Dragonite on his last legs, Pikachu will be able to return to the battle and finish off Dragonite, giving Ash the win. Ash will then release Lapras as in canon, and the Orange Island saga will end with Ash losing to Gary yet again. This will even further invigorate him into wanting to defeat him in the future. In order to become stronger, Ash will head to the Johto region. This brings us to the end of the video. I hope you all really enjoyed it. Now, I know I didn't talk about Misty, Brock, and Tracy really at all here, but I'm sorry. I really didn't want this video to be super long, going into every detail to improve their stories. I mean, they barely have stories, so I'd have to write new plots for them from the ground up, and this video is already longer than I thought it would be. At best, I can just say that I'd give them more development and actual major plot events for their goals, and, remove random fillers and instead give them more episodes to specifically develop them and their Pokemon. In fact, if you guys have any ideas to better develop their stories, leave them in the comments. As for Ash's story, I really hope you like the changes I made. I can very much see people disliking the changes I made to Charizard's story, but I thought this fit better and makes Charizard a more interesting character. And I know people may say that I'm a total hypocrite with this rewrite because I always complain about this canon show only giving special stories to a couple Pokemon and ignoring the others, which is kind of what I did here. But honestly, my biggest issue with the Kanto saga wasn't the lack of unique stories for the Pokemon, it was the lack of development simply due to how Ash didn't even fully win all of his gym battles. And even in the ones where he did battle, it was often the same Pokemon over and over. Just giving his full team of Pokemon more battles is enough for me. But you can let me know how you would have rewritten the Kanto and Orange Island sagas. As for me, that's going to be the end of this video. I'll be continuing on with Johto and Hoenn, so stay tuned for those. Thank you!